Good morning and welcome to the second regular monthly meeting of the Greenwich Board of Selectmen. Please rise and join in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This is a regular meeting. Selectman Lichtback is traveling. We are hopeful that he will be able to call in. We arranged for that, but due to time differences, it may be prohibitive as to where he is. There are copies of the meeting's agenda on the table as you come in, as well as two sets of materials for the items that the board will be considering today in public session. It is a very light agenda, but we will be taking up a matter under new business. Item number 2 is approval of minutes from the last regular meeting that was held on August 9th, and we'll entertain any corrections or changes to those minutes. The only change that I would make is on page 3. Is there a page 2? We want to look at a motion to reappoint Angelo Pucci, because the Board of Selectmen appoints, not nominates. So to reappoint. And I would say reappointment was approved. Are the full ones you think online? If you can, yeah, just so we have it. We're just gonna get didn't copy over page 2. Okay. We're just awaiting, there was a issue with the minutes, with the page not being put in the material, so page 2. Yeah, he withdrew. Yeah, I saw that. Well, we only have one spot, and I am appointing, I'm just waiting to verify status onto Kokaro. Thanks. Oh, thanks so much. So, resumption of the review of the minutes. I'm just looking at Brower's name. Is it? Doesn't seem like that's right. Eric Brower. It seems like it's.
Okay, that's needs to be corrected. B-R-O-W-E-R.
Great, okay. So page 2, under A, it should be Eric Brower, B-R-O-W-E-R. Okay, if there are no other corrections, there's a motion to approve the minutes as amended. Okay, without objection. Updates, quickly run through. On August 16th, I attended a meeting of the Fairfield Five. The Fairfield Five is a consortium of, an informal consortium of the 5 towns, Greenwich, Stamford, Norwalk, Westport, and Fairfield. The purpose of the group is to better coordinate on issues related to economic development, transportation, and any matter that will affect a broader region than just the towns itself. The group determined for the first year that we would have Mayor Martin be the chair of it. He will then coordinate the arrangement of the meetings. In addition to setting some priorities for the next year, which we're all endeavoring to come to consensus on, we agreed to approach each of the major party candidates for governor with those agreed upon priorities and to perhaps have a forum interview to see where they stand. Matters of transportation are widely impactful to all the communities. Certainly allocation of resources from the state to support initiatives within the area and capital improvements are of critical importance. And our overall effort to recognize that we all are individual communities, we all are competing, but in many ways we could work in collaboration. There are things that would better be suited for Stamford than Greenwich, and perhaps better for Greenwich than Stamford or some other towns. So it's been enormously beneficial to hear from the first selectman of Fairfield as an example in terms of what they're experiencing in their community and sharing ideas. As an example, each of the communities in some way are undertaking some form of marketing. It's not novel, but everybody's looking to put their best foot forward as to the community's benefits. One of the things that we pointed out when we participated in the Greenhouse Lab sponsored by Deloitte Consulting, when they were asking us, and there was 3 of us present, myself, Jim Aiello from the Economic Advisory Committee, and Tyler Fairburn from Community Development, if you had one thing that you can name about your community that would make you stand out. And of course, there's the physical attributes, which frankly we know full well, but we came up with our intellectual capital. And the more that we thought about that, we felt very good that that's our people. And our people are reflective not only in the government and the volunteerism and the expertise, but throughout industry, whether it be healthcare, finance, entertainment. We have a real plethora of talent here, and that's something that we are accentuating. We continue to have discussions with Eversource. As you know, we have appealed their the approval of the Siting Council, which granted them the new substation at 290 Railroad Avenue, as well as traversing underground the roadways from Coscob through Indian Field through Bruce Park and so forth. Really, there are 2 issues we're working through. One is the aesthetics of the proposed substation site, and 2, a crossing of the Bruce Park pond, and that's something that I think we're making progress. We do have court-directed process, which was put off, I think, until early September in New Britain. We expect that we may come up with some agreement. That agreement ultimately will come back to this board because we initiated the decision to appeal. So it would only require approval of this board. And so I think, stay tuned. I like what I'm seeing and what we're receiving in terms of feedback to our requests. Yesterday, I had a meeting with AT&T's representatives. This was to have them present smart cities technology and initiatives. This is something that's not unique to Greenwich. It's best practice. And really what it is in a nutshell is employing technology to better provide not only processes, but provide data to decision makers so that we can make wiser decisions based on data, not emotion, not subjectivity. So as an example of what they were showing us, there are technologies that are put on lampposts which are able to not only impact the illumination of urban areas and be controlled. That's really elementary. What it does do is provide the ability to monitor air quality, to determine vibrations in urban areas where there's crime. They could determine gunshots, the radius in which the gunshots come from. They're able to determine pedestrian traffic, vehicular traffic, and then have that as a metric so that you can make decisions in terms of whether or not you're going to, as we do, install traffic installation devices or what have you. So this is clearly a product that they're working in tandem with GE. They're going out to several communities across the country. One of the programs was highlighted in the U.S. Conference of Mayors, Business Driving Economic Growth. And this had to do with Comcast's Machine Q deploys smart city solution in Philadelphia's holiday hotspots. And a lot of it had to do with taking areas of that city where there was quite a lack of illumination and employ the new LED and other illuminating devices to brighten and attract people. This was, again, through Comcast. This publication, actually, if you're able to access it, was very beneficial. There are a couple of other things that we can learn from. Tonight, there will be an opportunity to promote 4 Greenwich police officers in a ceremony at the Public Safety Complex. The officers are Sergeant Martin O'Reilly, who will become a lieutenant, and then from a rank officer to Sergeant Jason Lyman, James Smith, and John Tarr. There will be the swearing in of recently retired Lieutenants John Rodriguez and Sergeant Dave Colbury as special police officers. This weekend, Saturday at 1 p.m., there will be a celebration on Island Beach marking the 100th anniversary of the island being donated to the town of Greenwich by the Lauder family. And I know that, John, you have been coordinating or the point person for this with Kevin O'Connor. And I know that you were a frequent visitor to the island as a young boy, right?
Well, every day.
Yeah. We are pleased to learn yesterday that the State of Connecticut Department of Housing is providing $5.1 million to the Housing Authority for the Armstrong Court project, and then another $1,966,000 to Hill House for updates to that property on Riverside Avenue. Armstrong Court will use the funds for asbestos remediation and quality of life improvements. This is all going to tie into their overall gut rehab of the facility and the addition of 18 new family units, which I believe will begin sometime in middle to late fall. Finally, we often hear from residents and we often hear on issues of concern. We also hear from them when they're pleased with something, and I think it's important to share those as well. Received an email from Wynn McDaniel, and she wrote to say that she had reached out and contacted Darren Wigglesworth of our Department of Parks and Recreation. She said he has been very responsive to my requests over the years about maintaining the park at Glen Road and Skylark Road. This has been a great partnership between the neighbors and the town as we have collected donations for plantings and a bench while the town has provided weeding, trimming, and overall maintenance. Darren and the Greenwich Youth Conservation Program team have been great to work with, and I wanted to pass along my thanks from all the neighbors. Please recognize Mr. Wigglesworth in the Greenwich Youth Conservation Program when you get a moment. Thank you, Wynn.
One thing about that little park, it's overwhelmed, or it was the other day, with political signs still.
Oh, boy. And I missed it. Okay. This came from resident, Dear Mr. PJ Tessie, I would like to thank Greenwich Senior Center for their well-planned activities and services, as well as the caring staff that is always helpful to their members. But the real intent of this letter is regarding the facilities. I want you to look and take a look at the doors that face Greenwich Ave. Look and feel how heavy they are. The doors are as you are entering the building, the carpet, the green color of the cafeteria, the old furniture, the library, the smell in some of the areas. It is quite depressing. and shows no care. Every citizen of Greenwich will experience entering this at some point in their lives, sooner or later, hoping this feeling and letter can make a positive change. So I met Rosemarie last Friday, was it, or Thursday? I went over to call bingo. And the good news is we had Patricia Burns here last week. Patricia is the chairman of the Commission on Aging. And the fact is, and she did not know, Ms. Delabert, that the senior center is under a multi-year renovation. It began with the bathrooms and the administrative offices. It has now gone to the lower level as you come in from Bruce Place, to a new activity room for arts and crafts. There's also 2 new offices. One provides opportunity for senior-related organizations to come in and meet with citizens. And so that is part of phase 1. In addition, there is a handicap accessible ramp that was put in last year. It is operational. What looms ahead and really touches on, and why I shared the whole letter with you, is that they're in the process of putting in a new kitchen on the ground level. So the kitchen will move from the first floor down to the ground level. Where the kitchen is, in that activity room that has the 70s green, I guess as it's referred to, will become an exercise and activity room. And so that whole space will be further expanded. And then finally, the area to the right as you come in from the front will have the lounge, and where people can come in and have something to eat, read, and so forth. So it's going to take 2 years from now as they phase this work and they keep the activity running. But Ms. Delbert was very happy to hear that. But I wanted to acknowledge her letter, because did you get my letter? I said, yes, I got your letter. Finally, received a letter from the Greenwich Symphony Orchestra, President Mary Radcliffe, and she writes, It was my pleasure to attend a fine concert at Greenwich High School's Performing Arts Center, offered by the Summer Art and Music Camp, sponsored by Parks and Recreation of the town of Greenwich. Hundreds of young people, children from Greenwich, participated in an hour-long program of great variety, joyfully demonstrating their instrumental skills, their fine musicianship, their ability to work together in a group, and their dedication to making music. Many, many thanks to the teachers and conductors who planned and led this heartwarming, inspiring group. Our town of Greenwich is blessed and fortunate in so many ways. I thank the Department of Parks and Recreation for recognizing the importance of art and music in our lives, and for offering and sponsoring this magnificent summertime gift to our young people. Gratefully, Mary Radcliffe. And this is two? Okay, so another more immediate thing, and I'll be quiet. Over the last several weeks, we have been working with members of the community in the family of a young man who has been afflicted with serious illness, and it relates to people's desire to express their support and love for this young man, but for people overall who are afflicted, and it's called the Kindness Rocks program, or Kindness Rocks Garden. This was reported on, I believe, in one of the publications, Free Press, was it? Several weeks ago, as people began to bring these small painted rocks with motivational messages to Coscob Park. We were approached through several people. One of them was State Representative Fred Camillo, to see if we could find an appropriate place to have people bring these rocks, because naturally they become an obligation of the town to handle once they're put on our property. After several weeks of patience and thought, we were able to identify an area right out here at Town Hall as you enter from the parking lot, as you ascend either the stairs or the handicap ramp, which will be the Kindness Rocks Garden. And so we've designated the place right here at Town Hall that will enable people to come and place properly sized rocks with messages for, in this case, Stephen Siddell, who's a young man from Glenville, or others, and really bring forth, in this era of contention, some positive messaging. So I just want to thank the Department of Parks and Recreation, as well as the Department of Public Works and Building Construction, for taking the time out of their other prescribed schedule to work with our office. And I want to thank Barbara Hines, who handled the multiple phone calls with all of the interested parties to make this happen. It's indicative of the type of thing that the Selectmen's office encounters on a regular basis. And if you think about it, it makes sense. People come to that office to find answers or solutions to things, and often they're not things that you anticipate. They're impromptu. This is one that means a lot to a lot of people. It means a lot to me as someone who knows this family, that we're able to provide that community support. It's very emblematic of what I believe Greenwich is about. And so I think we'll be having some more formal dedication, so to speak, in the near term. Finally, I mentioned about Mr. Margot's atrium, or is that? The other dedication that we're going to be doing, this board under the previous membership voted to dedicate the atrium at the Greenwich Public Safety Complex in honor and recognition of John B. Margonot Jr. For those who know Mr. Margonot, he served as first selectman for 10 years and selectman for 4 years, so a total of 14 years. In addition to serving on the BET and the RTM from District 8, as well as ongoing service presently on the Board of Ethics. His early years were lived downtown, and one of the connections to that area was the fact that during wartime, he was a spotter who would climb the steps and up to the cupola of the old town hall. And that was written in his, I believe, oral history at Greenwich Library. So we are going to be recognizing him formally. The atrium has been so designated with the plaque and lettering on September 8th at 10 a.m. And he had recently turned 90 years old, and very much active still. But I do want to thank those who have been supportive of this, and I particularly want to acknowledge the contributions that Hearst Media and Greenwich Time, Tom Milana in particular, is making in providing us photographs from Mr. Margonot's tenure. They are truly special and priceless to see the interactions he had and how that has come forward today, 30 plus years ago. So September 8th at 10 a.m. at what will be known as the Margonot Atrium at the Greenwich Public Safety Complex. That concludes updates. We do have no old business today. Under new business, we have with us today John Eddy, who is chairman of the RTM Appointments Committee, as well as the RTM Special Committee on the Condemnation Commission, as well as Arlene Lamazzo, who is an RTM member from District 6. And Arlene, are you on the condemnation? Oh, and chairman of the Public Works Committee. So we have both RTM committee chairs with us that interface with condemnation. And I'd like to invite our good friend, Mr. Eddy, forward. Thank you. And thank you for your indulgence in listening to me.
No, the updates were interesting, and it's nice to hear the good things that are going on in town. And I particularly love the idea about the Kindness Rock garden there. I've seen them all over Coscott Park, so I enjoyed the update. So thanks for listening to me today. I'm consistent with the information that I've provided to you. The reason we're here is that we're looking for an amendment to the town charter with respect to the description of the role of the Condemnation Commission. And I think you know, is for such a change to take place, it needs to be initiated by the Board of Selectmen. And we'd like to, if after looking at this, and if you agree and adopt it, we'd like to have this on the October call of the RTM. To be clear, this is a change in the description of the role of the Condemnation Commission, and it's not a change in the role of the Condemnation Commission. The current language makes reference to the commission. Current language was written, I believe, in 1939. It makes reference to the commission taking on the roles formerly invested in the Highway Commissioner and the Sewer Commission. These roles could not be identified in searching through the town records and history, and the fact that we couldn't identify what these were became an issue of consequence because the RTM is charged with both nominating and appointing for this body. So if we trying to find people to serve the town on this body, we want to know exactly what it is that they're supposed to do. So after consulting with the town attorney, he suggested that the creation of a special committee would be the way to address this. Such a committee was formed in January, and one of its recommendations was to make this amendment to the charter, which removes the confusing language and includes mention of the responsibilities related to parking, which were charged to the Condemnation Commission, which occurred subsequent to the current section of code as it's written being created in 1939. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you have, but it's what we're trying to do is make it easier for the people going forward. We have a better understanding. The people on the Appointments Committee and the people who served on the Special Committee have a better understanding right now, but we'd like to remove any obstacles to people in the future understanding exactly what the commission does.
I don't have any questions.
Great.
But I do want to thank you for your ongoing effort to clarify, modernize, and improve our processes
Thank you.
and function, which is something that takes great time and care. And I personally appreciate the time and care that you put into it. It really is not, while the change may seem simple and innocuous, the effort to research, to delineate as you've done, is intensive, and you've done a superb job, so I want to thank you.
Thank you very much for the acknowledgement, and thank you for the support that you've shown to me and to the Appointments Committee and the changes we've made so far. So that's been tremendously helpful. So I thank you very much.
So this would go on the call, you just said it, but October. So do we just want to vote on this next meeting, so then all three of us will be here? Yeah. So what we'll do is, we're hearing it today, even though it is routine, we will act at our next meeting. We'll get on the call for October. Then it will give the ability for all three to be here. Ideally, we try to have, since we're such a small group, but we do typically, as not by practice, when we have things like MIs or charter, we usually hear them at one meeting and then act at the next, even though this is a rather routine one. Yeah. So.
In case Mr. Litvak has any questions, it would be good.
So that concludes new business. Next item is appointments and nominations. We have several areas that are in queue. I know Witherell, we've interviewed 2 people. We have a third.
Here's Winnie being interviewed now.
And then we've done the Alarms Appeals Board. We have one person who's currently serving, whom we've been trying to get to come in. That is a rather a ministerial board of importance, and they need a full complement to function, as does most boards need a quorum. I know Witherell is very eager to have new members because they are concerned about having a quorum. And let me just think, John, what are the other ones that are?
We have several that will be coming up.
Well, we haven't seen Art Dem first yet.
For ZBA?
Yeah. And that's about it. You mentioned.
Actually, do you want me to-
Do you want to review them, Barbara? That would be helpful.
Okay, so they were for Planning and Zoning Board of Appeals. What ultimately should like to do is to have it for the October call is Kenneth Rogozinski, Arthur Delmhorst, John Vecchiola, and also Frank Barata. So there's 4 that we are endeavoring to schedule for the next meeting for interviews. And then for the Planning and Zoning Commission, there is Mr. Maitland, the chairman. And that should take care of it for this calendar year. Then we'll be moving on to
The 19th.
appointments that will be expiring rather in March of 2019.
Super. So today we just have one person to see, right?
Yes.
So what we will be doing is we will move into executive session so that we can interview that one person. So we'll be moving to item 7. In addition, we are expecting an update on some pending litigation. I don't anticipate we will have any litigation that we would be coming out of executive session and be voting on today.
Correct.
So is there a motion to go into executive session for the purpose to discuss pending litigation, settlement of claims, and to interview a candidate for, actually, it's the Nathaniel Witherell board, or they could be applied to any board
So moved.
of interest? Okay, without objection, 10:44. This is a resumption of the regularly scheduled Board of Selectmen meeting, August 23rd. Is there a motion to return to public session?
So moved.
Without objection. During executive session, the board interviewed one candidate for consideration to a town board or commission and received update on matter of pending litigation. I believe at this time, there's no actions to be taken. So will you move resumption of a public session, right?
Yep.
That was approved. So yeah, is there a motion to adjourn to the next meeting, which is
Thursday, September 6th.
Thursday, September 6th? We wish you all the best. You will be on vacation, much deserved, and we will have Kathy Sidor in attendance. We just want to caution you that stay out of the waters. There's sharks in the waters. So?
There are also other places besides the water.
Okay, is there a motion to adjourn?
Okay, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Without objection.
Thank you.